Real quick, before we start this podcast episode, I just want to say thank you for tuning into the Marc Colcer podcast. I know you've got a million things that you could be doing right now, and the fact that you're taking time out of your day to watch this podcast episode truly means the world to me, and I just want to say thank you for that. If you'd like to continue to support the podcast, right below this video, if you could hit the subscribe button, and then, hey, if you got some more time and you want to hit the download button, the comment button, the like button, the share button, any of those buttons, it's greatly, greatly appreciated. It helps for other people to find out about the podcast, and it helps for you to be notified about future episodes. So if you guys could take a quick second, hit the subscribe button, I would really appreciate that. Outside of that, this episode and every other episode is brought to you guys by Roast Umber Coffee. As some of you guys know, I co-founded Roast Umber Coffee, and we have the greatest farmers in Guatemala and Honduras and the greatest roaster in Grand Rapids, Michigan, all to bring you guys the greatest cup of coffee possible. So if you'd like to try it out, go to our website, use the coupon code MARC30, and you're going to get 30% off your coffee. Now on to the episode. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Welcome to the Marc Colcer podcast. I think the aspect of like doing this podcast with you and this time like you're fully doxxed, like what it does is it just adds once again so much more legitimacy to the space because like, you know, the first probably 6 to 8 months of me doing the podcast, like everybody was masked up and whatever, right? And like, you know, I think about all the time, like we do need to get to the point of like mass adoption. And the hardest part that I would always like when I was talking to other people who were coming into the space or like I was just telling somebody what I'm doing now, they were like, oh, let me like see your podcast with, you know, these NFT project founders. And I would show it to them. And the first thing they would do is be like, why do they have a mask on? And I'm like, I don't know if I got a great answer for that. Like, I really don't, you know? And it was like, I was like, yeah, well, you know, there's kind of this whole like anonymity part of like Web3 that people really like, yada, yada, yada. But then even when you explain it, it's like, okay, is it really that anonymous when you're tied to the blockchain, which digitally links everything that you do on there? I was like, it's not really like, you're not really that anonymous, you know? So it's like at some point they're going to be able to track you down to a bank account. So it's like, so I just feel like when everybody doxes and stuff like that, it just adds legitimacy. It backs up like the confidence that you have in your project and everything like that. So, dude, glad to be doing this one without the mask and glad you're here today. And yeah, so for people who don't know who you are, can you give a brief intro to yourself?
Yeah, my name is NFTHellBoy. I run a project called BVDCat on the Solana chain. I've been in the space for a year plus, almost a year and a half. Been running BVDCat for a year since we derugged, like almost 6 months from after mint.
There we go. So, okay, so we were just talking about this before we started the podcast, but you and I first did a podcast, it was like 6 months ago, right? Yeah. And so can you kind of walk us through the timeline of like kind of where the project was 6 months ago, and then what's kind of happened since we last chatted, since we last had the podcast?
Yeah, so I think 6 months ago was really weird, right? Because we went on the podcast and we had this whole roadmap planned out, but none of it was built yet. And that's always like an interesting thing because the thing we were most focused on was just delivering the executables, right? Like making sure the things that we told people were going to happen. And I think like in the process, we did this back in October. November, we dropped the gotcha machine in response to the royalty situation, and that worked out pretty well for us. Didn't have a big impact on the value to holders, so it didn't have a big impact on the floor price, which is always like a thing you have to be cautious of. And then December we dropped, you know, the trait swap and the huge partnership collection, which was super good. But you know, shortly after that, I feel like we really started to lose steam because there was kind of this feeling of, okay, you know, we raised X amount of money to build X amount of things. We built everything on the roadmap. You know, what are we doing now? Like we planned this whole thing to take like a year, and then, you know, volume came in and we saw an opportunity to aggressively expand like our network and our connections and just pile through the roadmap as fast as possible on all the deliverables. And so we found ourselves in this really interesting situation where in like 4 months we did our whole year plan, you know, throwing some oddballs in there like PFP staking, the gotcha machine to solve like core issues we had with our business model. And so, you know, from January onward, it was really just like a process of looking inward, like where are the problems within the structure that are preventing growth for the project? And then also just taking a look at like what worked, what didn't, humbling ourselves in the way that like nothing is unchangeable. Like everything about the product, from the onboarding experience, from the interaction, from what's exciting to it, nothing is unchangeable, you know? So just staying open for the future and staying adaptable and restructuring the team. Big part of it, you know, getting the right members on board, the right people who are motivated, who understand that like sometimes what you want to build in Web3 is not product market fit. And that at the end of the day, like our number one focus is to return value to holders and do things that are exciting, do things that can capture attention and mobilize people to want to be a part of something. And to some degree, you know, in those 6 months that we were doing stuff, you know, since October, I feel like from a core team perspective, a lot of people started to trail off the idea of like, okay, we have BVDCat, there's all these supporters. How do we take the IP somewhere? And for me, it's always been a focus on like, how do we grow BVDCat in the ecosystem? How do we get it positioned to be an IP? You know, how do we get it into a position where it's at the forefront of the chain? And then once it's at the forefront, how do we scale it up from there? And, you know, we had a lot of team meetings, a lot of restructuring, and the end result was us centralizing the leadership into me, having just one central lead carrying out the vision of the core team, and then bringing other people up into the internal structure that wanted to kind of handle those operations so I could do the more big picture things. And so, you know, since then we've completed everything. We're taking a big look at what worked, at what didn't, how we can improve those systems, and then how we can branch away from it to help people understand that BVDCat isn't just about trait swapping and traits. It's about a project with a crazy community, crazy ability to generate attention and hype. And we're going to leverage that into everything we do, into things where we feel like attention and hype and having a good community amplify what we're building.
I think at the end of the day too, like my biggest thought is like when a project announces something, I don't really care how their community responds to it. And the reason why I say that is because it's like you got your bags tied up in that. Of course you're excited, right? But when, okay, take Dookie Dash with Yuga, right? When I first saw the game and you see all these like Bored Ape holders, oh my God, like this shit's crazy, you know, whatever. And I'm watching it and I'm like, okay, yeah, it's not, cool. It's whatever, you know. But then the thing that they did do right was all of a sudden everyone's posting their high scores, right? And the curious part of me goes, God damn, I wonder what I would score, right? And so even though I'm not a holder, I'm talking about it, I'm thinking about it, right? And I think a lot of times it's even like, you know, you take D-Gods, you take some of these other big projects that are out there, Clanosaurus with their like IRL drops that they've been doing that have been really, really hitting super strong, right? And when you look at that and you think about how many people outside of the community are thinking about those things and talking about those things and have strong opinions on those things, and whether good or bad, right? But like they have that strong opinion. That to me is such an important bull indicator of like this is something, right? Because if nobody outside of your community gives a shit, then what you built didn't matter, right?
1,000,000%.
And that part is, so I want you to walk me through that, because you know, I remember when we first chatted, the trait swapping thing was a big aspect of things, right? And I remember at the time we kind of talked about that, and I can't remember exactly what your answer was to why you thought that process was going to work, right? And that it was going to be a big thing, right? But kind of walk me through, like, once you rolled that out, what aspects of it worked, what aspects of it didn't work, like, and then some of the announcements that you guys have had in the last 6 months, like which ones generated the social excitement that you were looking for and which ones didn't. And the reason why I asked this question is because I think it's really important to look at what you thought was going to hit and how did it actually go, right? And I say that to project founders all the time, is like, yeah, I always want to know, what was that thing that you had that you were like, dude, people are going to love this, and then nobody gave a shit. Like, because there's a lot you can learn from those experiences. So for you guys, like, talk about the trait swapping and talk about some of the other announcements you guys had. Which ones did you think, hey, this is going to get a lot more excitement, and then why do you think it didn't?
Yeah, I don't want to derail it, but I think the thing you brought up with like Yuga is really, really like, it's all based in fundamentals, right? Like when you look at any app game on the App Store, the number one apps that run on repeat are them just playing the game wrong. Yeah. Because it makes you want to do it right. And I think that's the crazy thing about Yuga, is they understand the fundamentals, right? Like the shareability and the virality of it. You see it, you want to play it, but then at the same time, you always think you can do better. Like, oh man, I would have done better than that. And that is just like, you know, so many projects release things without the virality element even fundamental to it. And it's like, without that, sure, you build something great. How's it going to grow? How's it going to spread? How's it going to, you know, tackle the top of that onboarding funnel? And I think it's interesting, you know, when I think about BVDCat and I think about all the things we released, I don't feel like I was really excited for a lot of it. The only thing I can really remember being like, oh shit, this is going to break the internet a little bit, is PFP staking. Because like off the bat, I knew that it was a little different. Like we would be closer to first to market with it. But also like the idea of gating a reward behind your PFP is such a polarizing factor. Like there are people who are going to be like, oh, this is great because it's free marketing. There's going to be people who are like, well, this is punishing people who have brands and social identities. It's something that gets people talking about it. And it's also something where it's so entwined to the core of what projects do. Like staking, when something breaks the staking meta, it can quickly take over and become rapid in adoption. So a lot of people wanted to debate, like there was a lot of podcasts with Doodles who were just talking about like, is this PFP staking thing a niche or like, you know, a flavor of the month, or is it there to stay? And, you know, you're seeing some projects adopt that now, but I definitely think back in the day, that was one thing we did super successful that I thought was going to be successful. There was a bunch of other stuff we did where I initially felt it was going to do well. And then there are different factors that came into the picture where I lost the excitement over it. One of those things was when we dropped Trade Swapper, I was super stoked for it. And then I went to Vegas and I had a conversation with, Fast Eddie, who I love to death. And when this man pitched me Boots, I went back to our devs that day and said, yo, speed this shit up because we got work to do. Like Boots was an incredible thing from the way it was being portrayed. And I think it's doing really well now and what it was trying to achieve. So, just realizing that there are certain things you're excited about and you can't let that blind you. You have to be adaptable. You have to understand where your position is in the market. Just because you think the idea is good doesn't make it good. One of those best examples is, the market share between Famous Fox and Monet by SAC, right? Like Famous Fox monopolizes 99% of the raffle streams on the entire chain, right? So like you can pour all the resources into a platform, onboarding all these different things, bring it straight to the communities. It might not do the thing you want it to do. So with everything we do from this point on, my first goal is a piece of advice Frank gave me back when we had the Utes Trait collab space. And it was everything they do at DGods, they write from the headline down. They write the tweet first, what reactions they're going to get, and they work backwards from there. Like if it's cool, we'll make it happen. I realized like our team works in a very similar way, and like our devs aren't afraid to build anything. They're confident they can build anything. We have the art resources and internal team deployment to do stuff. So it's just about doing something we know is good and has an element of polarizing or virality to it to get people interested.
Momentary pause.
Yeah.
I got my own water jug. Okay.
Oh, that was your water jug? I was
Yeah.
like, dang. I thought your tripod collapsed.
No. That would have been real bad.
Yeah, that would have been big sad. Yeah, what were we talking about?
The virality. Sorry for the delay there, guys. Water jug fell down, hit a light. We're good. But you were talking about, you were on that space with Frank, and he was talking about how they write the headline first and then work their way down from there.
Yeah, right. Like I think our team functions very much like that structure. So for me now, the main goal is like, okay, we're creating something cool. That's the first step. The headline for it, does it look good? That's the second step. Now, what are we going to change to it to completely make people hate it or love it? And that's a really big factor. One of the recent things we did was, the content video drops. I've always wanted to do that kind of content ever since we shot the documentaries back in Miami. And we never knew how we were going to chop up the footage. We always knew we wanted to do some kind of like viral TikTok style thing. And when we were making it, the whole team was very against me making the video because they're like, oh, everyone's going to be like, you're copying Frank. And I'm like, good. Because if they think that, then they're talking about it. Then they're upset or they're polarized in some way. And there are going to be people who defend it. People will be like, oh, like Frank didn't invent video content. And it's a whole debate that's completely pointless, right? Like there's no wrong or right to it. There's no monopoly on a format of anything. But what it does ultimately is it amplifies the ability for our content to reach people. When we dropped that, it did 70K views, simply off the fact that there were some people who were DMing me like, you guys are so unoriginal, and other people who were DMing me like, I can't believe they're saying this. Like, I want to go off on them. And I'm like, no, don't worry. This is good. Like, and having that approach is such a different experience because now I go in thinking like, I hope someone FUDs this release, but like the right amount to cause controversy and have things go. And now with everything we do, I look to combine those elements. Like I think about PFP staking as a really big success, and knowing that the same feeling I had for PFP staking, I didn't have for the things we were doing afterwards, but we were just kind of sticking the course. Realizing that, taking that approach into everything, and then just being more confident from a leadership perspective. Not sourcing opinions from people as much as I used to, in that like I used to take in every single thing every founder says to me. And now I realize like you have to really pick the opinions of the founders around you. A lot of them are not succeeding, like despite what they might have you believe or their treasuries believe. In terms of like user acquisition, like improving the onboarding funnel, a lot of them don't have like advice you can really take to heart. And if anything, like you should take their experiences and really analyze them, whether there's something you should listen to or something you should go against. Because who you imitate the behavior of from a structural and thinking perspective affects everything that happens in the project. So in 6 months, just analyzing everything we've done, making sure that we don't repeat the same mistakes, that we emphasize our strengths, and we trim all the fat in the product to do something that's really going to change things.
Yeah, I mean, I think about everything in the sense of like, okay, we gotta try to understand it from a lot of different perspectives, which is difficult, right? Because, I think when you mention like PFP staking, right? I'm like, for me, I can never change my PFP.
Right.
I know I can't, right? So the moment somebody mentions PFP staking, my interest in that project like cuts into like an eighth of what it was. Because to me, I'm like, damn, like if that limits me, I have no real interest. I can only have one PFP, right? And so what I think is even more important is building that rationale as to why somebody should never want to change their PFP, right? And like I said to Frank at one point, I said, if I change my, like on one hand, I could argue, change my PFP to a photo of me because like people know what I look like. They know, they know my name at this point, yada, 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 all that. Change my photo to, just a photo of myself, right? The issue with that is that I think the value of that DGOD PFP that I have is more beneficial than my own
1,000%.
Than my own self.
1,000%.
But that's great. Like when you think about that, right? I'm saying that a PFP of a random ass character DGOD is more important to me than my own face, right? That's a wild accomplishment. Like that means that they've built so much demand for that PFP that me having that is more important to me than me having my own face as my PFP, right? And so that is, I'm putting myself in a position. It's not Frank saying to me, dude, don't change it to your own self because it'll, because this could happen, yada, yada. It's me realizing I can't do that. It makes more sense for me to leave my DGOD PFP, right? So you're creating so much value and social attention to that PFP that it makes it where somebody doesn't want to change it, right? So if you guys give your holders enough reason and there's enough like overall like positive sentiment towards the bad cats, then somebody's never going to want to change their PFP because they're going to be like, damn, this bad cat holds weight, right? Like it gets me if I remember when I was like first getting into space and I would go to like request to talk in a Twitter space, they wouldn't really bring me up. But then once we did Ute List and all of a sudden it was like all these ETH people were coming into Solana and like wanting to get on Ute List and everything like that. All of a sudden it was like I would request up in a Twitter space in ETH, Twitter space, and immediately I would get brought up because they were hoping that I could get them access to Ute List, right? But it was like all of a sudden that PFP carried more weight, right? So I think when it comes to like all the decisions that you make and everything like that, it's like, is this something that's really going to get people talking? And then am I creating that value and that sentiment 100%. Towards the project that like just transcends everything else, transcends the bullshit. We got so much bullshit in this space, but like making it where like when people think of Bad Cats, they think of like it's this top-notch, high quality, no bullshit project, right? And that's the sort of stuff that we need. And I think when it comes to certain other aspects of things like trait swapping and stuff like that, the tough part is like, is that going to get somebody to really go on the timeline and have a strong opinion on that, whether good or bad, right?
Right.
And so, how much do you pay attention to like what other projects are doing now? And like when you see something that like really works, right? Like we've seen that, I mentioned a second ago, like the Klano drops, like they do these IRL events and then you can get this Klano drop and these Klano drops have been instantly selling for like $1,000, right? So which you're basically saying, hey, if you go to a Klano party, you're getting paid to go. That's wild. That is such a wild thing to accomplish. And so, and I'm not saying obviously to go and do that. Like obviously the more people are going to go and copy that, they're not always going to have success with that. But like do you look at what other projects are doing and like kind of what things are working and like why do you think those things work and like how does that kind of whole if you do that, how do you analyze those situations to figure out like is there something that Bad Cats can take away from that?
Yeah, massively. Like I think I can't speak for other founders, but I think I look at other projects and other founders and what they're doing like more than most anybody in the space. Like when I have conversation with the founders, just awareness of the ecosystem. And I think a big thing about it is like just using Frank, for example, right? Like, a lot of people have a misconception about DeGods, which is ridiculous. Like, the idea, like, DeGods aren't builders, they don't build anything, they haven't built anything that's like super scalable or amazing for the ecosystem. It's like, they build social capital. Like, that's what they do. Like, the fact that, I think Kid Pearl is the greatest example. I was in a Kid Called Beast space with a bunch of people, and Kid Pearl requests up, he gets accepted, and suddenly everyone's spamming hearts and being like, it's Mr. DeGod, the Mr. DeGod joined us. And Kid Pearl is like a fucking rock star in that space. Yeah, he's around a Kid Called Beast community a lot, but the thing that was really rallied in that conversation was the DeGod part of it. The fact that, they have the DeGod PFP in the space, and with everything that's going on, it means something to their community, right? Like, building that supersedes everything you can do in this space, because once you've built that social capital, you've built perceivable value, and once you have perceivable value in high demand, you're a luxury good. And once you've established yourself as that, you're in a position where the moves you make are completely different. Like, Doodles can drop a golden sock and they'll get FUD, but ultimately, like, they can do that the same way Azuki can drop skateboards. DeGods could drop Bitcoin for whatever price they want, and people can FUD it all they want. It's historic, it's cool, the concept is great, and it's another luxury good that has immense value off the bat. Like, and when you can prove as a product and as a brand that you can consistently drop things of value at all points, at all price points, like, you've dominated in that way, because that's not only attractive to the individuals who want to buy into your shit, that's attractive to these big businesses who are like, dude, if I do a DeGods collab, we could probably sell like a Gucci X DeGods t-shirt for like thousands and thousands of dollars. And there's already a market and market proof and proof of concept for that. And in that same perspective, a lot of founders that are on kind of like the level that BVDCat is at right now, they're very focused on utility, and they're very focused on these like tangible things. And I don't think, I could be totally wrong about this. I have a very strong opinion. I used to think that utility was the way. Like, if I just built as much as humanly possible, it would get there. And I think that's the most foolish decision you could ever make, because utility is a never ending cycle of wants and demands. And we've spent months tapering the expectation of our holders to being like, look, guys, I'm not going to tell you like every 3 seconds when we're building something. Like, I'm going to keep you informed. We're going to have a great line of communication, but there needs to be hype. There needs to be demand. And not everything is about utility. Like, some things are about the intangibles. Like, this upcoming thing we've got going on, which I'm sure we'll touch in later, it's going to onboard like the best artists in Solana into our community. They have a role, they're integrating their individuals in there. Having Toli, Kais, like all these other founders join into the community, having that social value and social capital, and having people around the brand that are influential, that's one thing that I see in a lot of the best communities. They've done really, really well. MBS has, whatever reasons they have going on, for SMB, they've always been known as like a builder PFP. DeGods is you see the PFP, you kind of know it as a builder to some degree now, because there's so many different DeGod holder projects that have come together. And I think that's an important thing. Like the direction in which you're focusing isn't just building on utility. It's almost like the utility, or what you're actually developing, is supplemental to the brand, supplemental to the experience, supplemental to the perceived value that can instantly be given. And one thing I've realized looking at other projects more than anything is that to understand the perceived value of a utility, you have to understand the product. When you see a very influential person who themselves is valuable using something or wearing something, then the product becomes valuable. You see this in fashion with celebrities. You see this with brands that are worth nothing. When you can convert that factor, it establishes what kind of brand you are and what kind of community you surround yourself with. And when you do that, it attracts other people of equal status, or people who want and aspire to be that of equal status. And by doing that, you create value indirectly. I think the best projects manage to do that. They have the best people in their communities, they have the best visibility, and they understand how the onboarding funnel for a luxury product works. And ultimately, my goal is to catapult us into that realm, right? Take the right steps to get to that level. And then once we're at that level, excel.
I mean, 100%. Like, when you think about, like, utility is such an interesting aspect of things, because if I told you right now, I've got 2 bags for you, right?
Right.
One is a Birkin bag, one is a grocery bag. And which one would you want?
Of course, the Birkin bag.
Which even though if I then hand you a drink and you spill that drink in the Birkin bag, That's a bad problem. We got a bad problem there, right? We spill that into the grocery bag. You can take that into the sink, wash that shit out, and you can it operates like new, right? So even though the grocery bag probably offers more true utility in terms of the ways that you can use it and everything like that, and the Birkin bag is just going to be worth a shit ton of money, right? And that's the true utility of it, right? And so I think a lot of times it goes back to like, you know, you can build all the utilities in the world, but that doesn't mean somebody's going to spend more money on it, right? So when you think about like iPhones, for example, right? iPhones, every year they come out with a new iPhone. Every year it's got more utility for you. They still know they can't charge you $10K for it. Like you're not going to pay $10K. So they have to keep it at a competitive level, which people are willing to spend and all of that, right? So now the nice part is they're converting you on a regular basis, so you're constantly buying new iPhones, which is nice. Right. But in terms of like, you know, utility, a lot of times there's just not always it doesn't always mean that floor price is going to go up just because you have this cool utility, right? The best utility is always going to be that people feel good about rocking that project, right? And that they sleep well at night knowing, hey, if my bad cats are doing really well, I can sleep well at night knowing that, right? If I have a ton of Klanos then I can sleep well at night knowing that floor price is going to stay at a pretty sustainable rate, right? And so, you know, it's a difficult thing to accomplish. Like this NFT space is something, and I think this is something that people have to understand, is that the NFT space is not easy, you know?
Not at all.
I think a lot of people start NFT projects and they truly have no clue like what they're getting themselves into. And so it's like part luck and then part like humility of like coming on here and like us talking about, you know, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and all that kind of shit. Exactly. And like, and then realizing like, okay, just because your project is at X, Y, and Z level doesn't mean it has to stay there. It can go up or it could also go down 100%. Depending on the decisions that you make. But like it's about constantly learning and evolving from there because this space is not easy. And what works now won't work 6 months from now. We've seen the NFT space a year ago. Where it's at now is completely different what you have to do to succeed, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, you know, for you as a founder, what do you feel like is the biggest thing that you've learned in the last like 6 months, 12 months, whatever about yourself?
Ooh, let me think about this. There's a lot of lessons I've learned. I'd have to say the biggest one is, it sounds like a really simple thing, but it's like delegation. I think like in the early months, I was trying to do a lot of the work myself and just like look over it. And I wasn't spending a lot of time thinking about the future. Like I was very much just like grinding out sweat equity day after day. And now taking a step back in the last 2 months, you know, we've built the organizational structure in a way where I have a lot more free time to network. And the benefits that have come from that, especially from a founder perspective, you know, tweeting on a personal account more to engage with people, meeting with different founders, being able to meet, you know, with the Solana Foundation, all these different things, those play a bigger part in your ability to not only have support with the things you're creating, but also expand the network of resources that are available to you. Like you can't open doors that are closed, like are shut to you completely. And by, you know, making those connections and by connecting with people, it leaves those doors slightly ajar. You're still going to have to work for them to get anywhere, you know, create an avenue where you can capitalize in an equally beneficial way to have a good extended relationship with these individuals. But you know, being able to be hands off of the labor work enough where I can think about the future, I can create timelines, I can deal less with figuring out the logistics of the current structure and know like, okay, I've set the pieces in place. My team is going to execute. I'm obviously going to lend a hand here and there wherever they need it. You know, but for the big vision and plan, like I'm planning the next step. I'm seeing how things are going. I'm analyzing and changing the approach. Stepping from the position I was in, which was seeing over the operations to like running the whole business. Obviously, I've become less of a day-to-day person, and now I'm like a big picture person. And I think that perspective, like I'm someone who wants to make sure every part of the product is the way I want it, and being able to trust the team I have enough to be able to deliver on the things on the vision that I have, and that they understand that, and then they can use our development resources to execute on that. Will I chart a course for something that's exciting? Will I, you know, come back to the team 5 days in and be like, look, we got to redo the way we're doing this. It's not going to work. Like, it doesn't matter if we're throwing away progress. Like, you can't be stubborn. You have to really look at what you're doing and be like, is this impactful? And if it's not, don't just do it to do it. And I think a lot of the time we did that. Like, we created a whole roadmap wherein, you knew everything that was going to happen. And yeah, we threw in a couple curveballs there, but like, I like to think about what would BVDCat have been like if we never dropped PFP staking. Like, it would have been terrible. I'll be honest about that. Like, I'm super objective about the process. And I think the biggest mistake is that like PFP staking is what catapulted us up. Everything else was not like non sequitur to it. It was just filler. And yeah, it's exciting to our core holders who've been with us for a long, long time. But the biggest thing you can do is onboard new people. Like, that's always the biggest thing. That's always been the biggest thing. You need new people rotating in to have any interest or growth in the product. And when you're constantly not doing anything new that you can put out there to get new people excited, and you're only catering inside to your community, you're not doing anyone any favors. Because the best thing you can do for those people is rotate new people in. I think that's one of the conversations we had back into October too, was like, the best thing you can do for your current holders is find ways to get new holders in, because it makes what they're doing more valuable. And that is the key to everything. And so more so than just building utility, being focused on the here and now, I'm thinking about, what are we doing? Does it make sense? Does it provide value? Does it provide value to the brand and the holders? And is it still good? Like, are we halfway through the process and it's still going to be a banger? Like, is the timelines right? Watching the meta, watching how the community reacts to things. Like, are we timing this correctly? Are we timing it not to get overshadowed by things? Being more strategic in the execution and really surgical, thanks to all the free time I have, I think that combined with being hands off a little bit more and trusting my team to execute with the setup we have now, those are the two biggest things.
So let's talk about the setup you have now with the team. So in the last few months, you guys have gone through some organizational restructuring. So can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in February, I think 14th, 19th, somewhere around there, we officially restructured the team publicly, which means like Lunar is no longer on the main team or the core team in any aspect. He's separated from the project entirely. I could go into how that went down and everything, but I think, it's a pretty amicable split, so I'm happy to just leave it there. In his absence, I've moved up into like the creative direction lead, and then from there, I kind of worked with our lead artist, Shark, who we signed on for another year, and really talked to her about what her issues were with the art, with like why we were getting delays, why we were struggling with things. And a big issue was just like her not feeling like she had the creative freedom to do the things that she wanted to do. And so, what I've worked with her in changing the structure is, maybe I don't need to be so hands-on with the creative aspects like we were previously, because that's not working. So instead, we've worked out this relationship where I tell her what the product market fit for what people want in terms of desirability. And that has a bunch of effects with trait swapping that I've like only realized now from thinking about it like 7-8 layers down the line. But making sure she understands the product market fit, but she can add her creativity to it and execute. Like, if I want more masculine things with sharper edges, darker palette designs, that's all I have to let her know. She's super talented. She's going to figure it out and go through the iterations to get there. On top of that, we've onboarded 2 or 3 different artists in the background, 1 on commission, 2 who are working there full time. They can handle a bunch of the other stuff we need, like the banners, the scenic stuff. So just improving the art flow structure so that we're never facing art delays in the future. On top of that, we've restructured almost our entire moderation team, who've been really, really close with us. They've been working on the project since before we even derugged it, to the rebrand to BVDCat. They were just working on it completely for free to support things. And I realized, talking with Gray from Alder Mages, Andy from Cyberfrogs, those guys, those are the best people you can have on your team. People that exercise a level of talent in any aspect or area, and then also have a level of dedication and devotion beyond the monetary perspective for themselves as individuals. Like, people who just want to put in the sweat equity and grow behind something. So, moving them up into small organizational roles has done an amazing thing. Even breaking it down as simple as like, I'm not out here networking for spaces. There's someone who networks our spaces. And now we're doing 3 to 5 spaces a week consistently again, which we fell off the horse with. Having someone who checks for the revisions in the art design, someone who's got a good eye for it and has proven themselves over time. And then another big factor is like bringing in a bunch of talent, like finding talent from projects that are just not doing well and being like, hey, do you need some work stabilizing yourself in Web3? Come work for BVDCat, do some commission work, do some full-time work. One of the best things you can do is just find talent that's underutilized and then repurpose it to make something really, really good. And that's a position and phase I'm in now where I'm just focused on, because I want to make the best stuff, and that's what's going to have the best result for BVDCat in the future, and BVD in general. I want to get the most talented people I can and just accumulate them into not just a resource, whether it's like they're full-time on the team or just an additional resource. And on top of that, like, we added another developer to our team whose job is basically to just focus on BVDCat full-time. The Bad Labs devs, you know, we have up to 9 of them, which is great. But when the software as a service is booming, it is very hard to make timelines on things. And as our SaaS expands, like, I can kind of see 3-5 day delays coming up in the pipeline, just because, you know, our priority is always servicing the clients and making sure that connection is good. So having someone on our team who can make sure that they're fully just dedicated to the product allows us to make those deadlines. And I think with that new organizational structure, we'll be able to avoid delays, put out faster amounts of content. And by having multiple people break down the process, like someone can design the base, other people are designing traits, someone's on palette creation, the ability for us to execute new concepts faster has improved immensely. We can go from like ground zero to having a product near ready in like 7 to 10 days, where before it would be like a month-long process of working it out because we had one artist, one dev team. So fixing all of those issues so that we can continue to be exciting, continue to put things out at a good pace, and making sure we trim all of the unproductive members of the team so that we're running the leanest, most efficient, most hungry version of whatever we're trying to put together so that we can absolutely smash 2023.
100%. You know, I think that, like, you know, with these projects, there's a lot change is expected, right? Like, I expect when people are talking to me about their team and everything like that, I'm like, man, the odds of like the original team being the same team a year later, 2 years later, dude, it's just not practical. Like, there's so many reasons as to why that is. And like, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's just like, for some people, they're not able to invest the same amount of time. Some people lose the passion. Some people, you know, like, real life shit gets in the way sometimes. Like, there's so many factors that play a role, but at the end of the day, the goal is to continue to put the best team around possible, right? And with that, it's like, you know, when you look at like the Yankees, the Lakers, the you know, greatest sports teams, right? The thing that they do a good job of is they replace talent when talent leaves, right? That's life. That's inevitable. Like, you're never going to have the same exact team throughout the history of time. You got to change. You got to grow that team. You got to figure out ways to better utilize things, to run it more efficiently, all that sort of stuff, right? And so the way I look at it, and we briefly touched on this before we started the podcast, but there's like 2 factors that I really look for project success. One, do you have an additional revenue stream where you can sustain the project, right? Now, that term additional revenue stream has been a buzz phrase forever in the space. But like, the thing about it is difficult to sustain a project if you don't have that, right? And so I look at that as a major plus if somebody does have that. It's not, there are projects that succeed without that, but it is a huge benefit when they do have that, right? And then second is, you know, do they have the ability to just change consistently? Because, you know, this space moves so quick, so that, like, you know, I mean, when SVB fell, the bank, right?
Right.
It was like Friday was like the most depressing day on crypto Twitter. You go on there, you know, USDC's deep pegging, everybody's, you know, crying, you know, what's gonna happen, blah, blah, blah. Get your money off Coinbase, yada, yada, right? Monday, euphoria. And it's like, dude, this space changes so quickly. So, like, just roll with it, right? Yeah. And so the, you know, the different metas that work, you know, all that changes over time, right? So I want you to go back into, you touched on art a little bit there and kind of what you guys have done to optimize the art aspect of things. But you guys have something coming with some one-of-one artists, right? Am I correct on that?
Yeah. And I think it'll be, I think we can talk about it because I think it'll be public by the time this comes out. We usually take a week.
When's it coming out?
24th.
Oh yeah.
Super funny.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What do we mean? Today's the 20. So yeah, this is definitely not coming out before the 24th. So awesome. So this news is out by now, but tell us more about it.
Yeah, so basically we're putting together a one-on-one collection. It's called the Immortals. It's branded to fit around like the concept of immortalization, which we talked about before, which is finally releasing. Like, it's a concept we really had to iron out super hard, and I'm sure we'll go into it sometime, but I'll stay on topic with this. And I'm really excited about it. You know, I've seen the Pixel one-of-one scene is growing massively on exchange art. It's actually super underrated. You got some really, really crazy talented people in there. Zolp, you've got Melty Tanty, you've got Early, you've got Taps, Pillow. Like, there's just so many cool people I can think about. Simatoka, Fuji. Like, there's amazing people. And so what I wanted to do was, one thing is grow the community, like who's in the community, who's a part of it. And I saw a really cool opportunity for us to release something that was like representative, that BVDCat and BVD in general can put out a product that is desirable. It's valuable on a bigger scale. So we're putting together a 100 supply collection of one-of-one pixelated BVDCats. And the entire lore, theme, and premise is that they're just like iconic BVDCats throughout the lore of BVD, throughout history. And the reason I wanted to keep it so loose was because I wanted to be able to do the collection entirely filled with collaborations with one-of-one artists. So we're bringing on all of those super talented one-of-one artists to do their rendition of a pixelated BVDCat with the complete creative liberty. Like, I just want you to express yourself and be a part of this world, be a part of this place, be a part of this lore. And, you know, sending them a BVDCat and having them be a part of that, part of the community. And I think by taking the opportunities to do that, not only will we get people who are in a different price point and also a different community to be interested and understand what BVDCat's about, because they might be interested in this pixel art and they might be interested in the collector aspect of it, or at least just invested in the artists behind it and want to support what they're doing. And bringing that visibility, bringing that market of people into BVDCat, I think is a super, super beneficial thing. So I'm just super excited. We have like so many different variations of the one-of-ones from different people, and we're not even keeping the base fully homogenous. So it's going to be a lot of creative expression and how these different pieces work out. And I think that's really, really exciting. Being able to make sure that we not only highlight one-of-one artists that are emerging and breaking out, people who are experienced and don't really need to emerge and break out, but also doing it in a way that benefits the ecosystem. Like, all of the one-of-one collaboration partnerships, all of the revenue is going back to the artists, every single drop of it. And I think that's the cool thing. For us, we get to put ourselves in a position where not only are we expanding the IP in a way that's fun, it's also giving a PFP that can distinguish which holders are identifiable members of the community rather than just holders of BVDCat, people who have kind of a status symbol PFP. Typically, you know, BVDCat's like a 3 soul floor price. It can never at the moment be that status symbol PFP. There's the community presence, but it doesn't have the tangible value to make it a luxury good at the moment. You know, someone like the artist behind Fable Origins, if you know that pixel collection, their auctions do like 260 soul. Having them come and do a one-of-one with BVDCat, having that be something that someone is immensely proud to have because of the artist attached to it, having that be a part of our world sense and our lore, and being able to find opportunities to do that, to show that we can create meaningful partnerships that show BVDCat's ability to be valuable from a monetary perspective and to create valuable goods, and then repeating that consistently and finding a way to tap that back into holders, which we have a pretty cool way of doing. I don't think it'll be released by the time this comes out. It'll be a little later. Not all the auctions are going to be done in Sol. We've actually commissioned a bunch of them up front to be auctioned in different forms. So that'll be really exciting coming up.
There we go. No, I love that. I think anytime you're connecting with one-of-one artists, it's a great thing to do in the space. It also just kind of puts like a unique twist on your project, which I always think is super cool. Like I love when I see people like an artist putting their own version of another project. Like, it just, like, to me, it's like, man, I'm seeing, I don't even know a great way to describe it, but I'm just seeing something that I already love, like, being done in a new creative way. Like, it's just something I love. But so I mean, I think that's super cool. I'm excited for that to come out. And then from there, like, where do you see BVDCats going in the next year? Like, what are some of the, and I know a year is a long time, right?
Long time.
So okay, in the next, like, 4 or 5 months, if I'm a BVDCat holder, which I am, I've never sold my BVDCats, but if I'm a BVDCat holder, what should I be super excited about in the future of BVDCats? And like, what are the things that, like, right now get you excited every day to be working on as we're dealing with this bear market, and we're going to be in this bear market for the foreseeable future. So, what gets you excited about BVDCats and obviously besides the things we've already mentioned?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. If you asked me this back in October, I probably would give you a list of what we're doing, what we're excited about. But I think the biggest thing to be excited about BVDCat is, like, we're in a position to subvert expectation really hard, and everything we're doing is built around that. People have known us for building out the traits swapping, kind of leaning on that angle of things. And in that way, we've kind of become predictable or a little bit stale. And I think the thing that's just most exciting about, like, what we're rolling out by the end of March and then into early April is we're doing things that are completely different than our original roadmap. Like, it's not like we're pivoting away. Like, the traits are a supplemental part of the culture that people like. And there's a whole benefit to having them that I didn't realize, and that we were underutilizing that aspect. And that's like curating the collection to age over time by making the traits deflationary and then curating what new traits come in. And that's its whole complex thing that I'll talk about. But the most exciting thing is that we are in a position where we're not abandoning, but like reshifting our priority to, we're going to continue to use the things we've already built to continue generating revenue, doing things that our current holders like. But everything that we do from this point on is about pivoting and being adaptable, creating exciting things that just smash the headlines straight up, and doing that in a sequence where we're constantly just on people's feed. I honestly believe, like, compared to a lot of projects, like BVDCats engagement is out of this world. Like, when we drop something, it like dominates smart C societies, like Twitter post charts. And I think if we can convert that part of the user optimization funnel down into converting people to want to be supporters, wanting to be holders, wanting to be involved in our ecosystem, that's the biggest thing. It's not going to happen with what we're doing, like what we've done so far. It's not exciting enough. It's not new. It doesn't cater to the attention span of the product market fit. And so if you want to be excited about BVDCat, if you're thinking about buying a BVDCat, if you have one right now, like more so than a roadmap, more so than any project that you can think of right now, the ability for us to do exciting shit that you have no idea what's going to come out, but you're just going to be excited for it like every 2 weeks, that's what you should be looking forward to. The fact that what we're doing 2 months from now might not look like what we're doing now. And that's a good thing, because either we hit it out of the park and we run with it and we push it up as fast as we can. And if we don't, we're going to try another thing, shoot for it. And eventually, just like with PFP staking, those things are going to hit. And instead of following a linear plan that didn't capitalize off what we were able to accomplish, we're going to have an adaptable structure where once we have one of those hits, it's how do we follow it up? And once we get a sequence, then the run up is going to be amazing, because it opens up a whole bunch of different doors for us to activate on stuff. And also, like, having something in the pocket. And this is like something I try to tell every founder that I talk to now. It's like, if you know something is going to hit and you don't have to release it right now, like, maybe think about keeping that in the back pocket. Like, if you're so confident on it, because once you try a bunch of things and you get one thing to hit, if you know you have that banger and you follow it up, that is such a fucking massive thing. Like, being able to just do it back to back. I think when I think about a lot of the biggest projects, like, they're just able to run good announcements back to back and keep the hype train going and establish themselves to a degree where they can afford themselves the break to run up to this next hype train, right? Like, if there's a lull in what DGods are doing, it's not like we're like everyone on the timeline's asking when, because you know the next thing is going to be something everyone talks about. It's going to be something that everyone's discussing. The marketing is going to be legit. Teams that can prove they can do that are 1 in 1,000 in this space. Yeah. You know, the initial hype is easy to get. When it dies, how do you get back there? How do you get back there without being in pole position, you know, without having a massive floor price, without having a massive community? Solving those issues is really, really hard. And I think that's one of the things that made DGods kind of legendary, was like, they didn't just go off of mint and go crazy. They struggled a bit. They adapted and struggled a bit. But then they ultimately proved that they could repeat success over and over again. And once you do that, you get trust from the holders. Once you do that, you get trust from the ecosystem. You get people who realize, if I buy something now, if the floor price goes down 40%, I don't care. Some bullish thing is going to come out and it's going to push it back up time and time again. And DGods manages to capture that. The best projects in this space manage to capture that every time. Even Clanos, when it dips, like, you can be confident now that if you're a Clano holder, you don't have to be afraid. It floor dips 30 souls, so what? Some cool IRL thing is going to happen. You're going to get some value directly dropped to you. Some cool animation that's able to break the engagement algorithms on Twitter is going to pump your bag. Like, that's valuable. The ability to capture hype and attention and deliver the same repeated results. And so that's what I'm focused on now, adaptability and just hitting it out of the park and being able to do it consecutively.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot about when it comes to like projects and what they need to do and be adaptable and everything like that. I think one of the biggest issues we have in the entire NFT space is the pride in this space.
100%.
And what I mean by that is, like, everybody thinks that their idea is the best idea ever invented, right? And what I think is super important is that you take these ideas, and when you think about like your biggest holders, right? The people who have 30, 40 bad cats, or however much is the biggest holders, right? The people who have 15, whatever. The people that have that many bad cats, obviously there's a reason why they hold, right? Exactly. Why is that? Like, why did they buy? Why do they hold on to these? That answer is such an important question. And when you ask people that, everybody's going to have a different answer. And so, when somebody newly buys into bad cats, why did you buy in, right? Like, those are the questions that really matter. Because at the end of the day, and I go back to the whole pride thing, we all think we know. But I guarantee the answer is different than what you think, right?
100%.
So when you go to the community and say, okay, I want to know what makes you excited about bad cats? What makes you want to be in this community? Because I think a lot of times, if I'm talking to somebody, let's take the trade swapping, right? If you're talking to one of your holders and they're like, dude, this trade swapping aspect of it is my favorite part, right? My question to them would be, okay, how many bad cats do you hold? If their answer is 1 or 2, what's the floor price of bad cats right now?
Like 3.3 probably.
Okay, so we're basically at right around $100 to get a bad cat, right? So if somebody's like, dude, I love the trade swapping so much, it's my favorite part about all of this, and I'm like, how many bad cats you got? 2. Okay, so you're so bullish on this feature that you spent $200. Yeah. And I'm like, listen, I'm not knocking $200. $200. And there's a lot of parts in the world where $200 goes very, very far, right? I live in LA where $200 barely gets you dinner. But I know there are a lot of parts in the world where $200 takes you a long way. So I'm not knocking that. But for the people that, have the ability to drop $500, $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, right? What's stopping them from aping in? Right. And I think that aspect of things is really important, because if they really thought that feature was incredible, they'd be spending a ton more. Right.
100%.
So what's keeping them from spending a ton more? Right. If they have the ability, once again, I know there's exceptions. Okay. No one jump on my shit. Okay. But for people who have that ability, what's stopping them? Right. And I think that feedback gets you the greatest answers that you can get, because once again, it's really difficult to know why everybody makes different buying decisions, why they buy things. Right. So when we go back to the whole Birkin grocery bag example, if we went up to 10 people who have a Birkin and say, why do you have a Birkin? I guarantee it's going to be 7 different answers, basically, right? Like, there's going to be a few overlapping answers and about 7 unique answers, right? So when you're asking holders, why do you hold bad cats? Or, if you just went and swept 5 of them, why did you do that? That feedback is so incredible. And this is the thing about the NFT space that's so great, is that you have the ability to go to your holders and ask them that. You can't really do that in Web 2 structures of, like, if you have a clothing brand, like, they send out those little, like, every once in a while, it's like, hey, thank you for shopping at such and such. Do you want to fill out a survey? And it's like, that survey is not telling them shit. But you have the ability to go onto Discord and call somebody, or go into a voice chat with your holders and say, hey, why'd you buy? Why are you holding? What's stopping you from sweeping, right? And that feedback mechanism is the most important and underutilized aspect of the NFT space, because once again, it goes back to pride. Everybody thinks they know the answer, but until you ask the question, you don't truly know if you know the answer, right? And so, and at the end of the day, I try to say, pride gets in the way of everybody from time to time, right? But I try to say to myself all the time, I'm like, Mark, swallow your fucking pride. Who cares if you're right, whatever. Bro, ask enough questions to know, why do people like certain things? Why do they not like certain things? And learn from that. Grow, evolve, keep adapting. Because otherwise you become stagnant, right? And the biggest thing that you never want to do is become complacent and stagnant, right? So I want you to talk about kind of like your feedback mechanisms right now. When you're making these decisions, obviously, like I do believe in the centralized leadership aspect of things, because I do think at the end of the day, somebody has to make the final call, right? Yeah. Like when it comes to my podcast, I'll get feedback as much as I can from other people, but at the end of the day, I'm making the final call, right? So I believe that you should get as much feedback as possible, but I still believe you should make the final call. But like right now, how are you generating feedback from people? And are you doing that with everything that you guys are doing? Or like, how does that feedback mechanism work right now for you guys?
Yeah, I think the cool thing is, like, we've had so many partnerships that there's actually like a really wide network of other founders that we can talk to. And like having and culturing those good relationships are really good. Obviously, when I come up with anything big or have any plans, I obviously call you. We have a talk. We have a little catch up. I source some feedback. I know that you represent the opinions of a lot of people, which is good. You have I think you and the people around you think very similarly. You gravitate towards people who have the same values and value the same ideas for you for the most part, which I think is good. That's why I value your perspective. You talk with so many people that you have such a good perspective of things. I think that's important, like talking to the right people to get the right opinions. And so, founders I respect, founders that have produced good results, obviously individuals like yourself, different influencers who make threads and are within communities. I think a big thing that's helped is talking to other big DAOs, like other big communities of like why they hold whale amounts of like OK Bears or whale amounts of like Utes or this, that's been a really helpful thing. But then also looking within like Bad Capital, which is like our whale DAO of holders, and going to them. And, Bad Capital, they sweep like 50 to 100 bad cats every 2 weeks. And every time it blows my mind. I'm like, why are you guys spending so much damn money on this? Like, and the feedback every time is just that they're always excited for the team behind it to do something. And that more than anything supersedes things. And when I realized that people do not need to be here for the trade swapper. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of people who love the trade swapper. I know plenty of people who have like 10, 15, 20 who like, that's their whole thing. And that's great. But on the widest aspect, a lot of the people are invested in the team, like the historical value behind the team, derugging, the attachment you get to an individual you've seen grow and learn and evolve from their mistakes, being able to be like, wow, this person stuck it in for a year when they were sweat equity grinding it out, when they were figuring it out. Now they've figured it out to a degree and they're still learning and growing. That attachment relationship, that's what people are hedging and betting on. And when I realized that was the core behind things, when I talked to other people and they told me like, that's the main thing I always hear about Bad Cat. It's more about the team behind it than it is the product itself. I realized like, that's the angle we need to attack is just like put out as much stuff as possible that is impactful and really, really hits, and source the feedback from people about like what they think is exciting. Like one thing that was super beneficial was going to Bad Capital and just asking them like, yo, everyone here, go ask one of your friends why they won't buy a Bad Cat and just tell me the answer. Because that's 75 people asking who are huge whales and they have friends who own hundreds and hundreds of other NFTs, and seeing that like a lot of the questions are like, well, dress up just doesn't really interest me. And it's like, cool. We don't have product market fit for them. Like they might like the community, the vibe, they might like the art, but there's nothing in it tangible that gets them excited. You know what I mean? Like you buy a DGod, you buy a Klano, you expect to go to events, you expect to meet cool people. It's a status symbol to some degree. Consistently these teams return a deliverable amount of value to you. Like owning a DGod, you got dust, that's value. You got a Ute, that's value. Like there's access points of delivering value directly. We never really did that. Klano does it the same with their airdrops. I mean, Oogie doing airdrop into what they've done is also a great example of it. So just having a direct line of deliverables for value back to the holders directly. And I think, those are perspectives that I kind of always had in the thought tank, but you can never really confirm it. And like approaching every thought from a place of humility. Like I love that you touch on pride, because I talk to founders who believe that what they're doing, their way of thinking is like absolute. Like there's nothing I can do to convince them. I still talk to them because it's good to get their super strong perspective, but they're so set on what they think the apex of a project in this space is going to be. And not to discredit them, but I know like some of the things they're saying are never going to reach that point just because of the limiting factors and the systems thoughts down the line that prevent that from happening. So just making sure sourcing the right opinions, and then also utilizing everyone from the whale groups to the founders, to the influencers, to people like yourself who run podcasts, to make sure that we're getting as much feedback as possible and we're filtering that feedback between what works and what doesn't. And then obviously like there are some things you just don't need feedback on too much. Like when it comes to like different types of marketing content, like I think we've always excelled at that and how to push the message out. And that's something like, we'll talk in the internal team about it. I'll talk to a couple people that I really, really trust, but those are things where it's like, if it's just like how we're going to release the content, that's something we can obviously scale down the opinions we need. If it's something like we want this to be a mass inflection point of onboarding users, and we're going to develop 2 months around structuring this point, and then everything else is supplementary to the new eyes are on us, we're converting them, we're convincing them, we're getting them onboarded. Making sure that just goes through as many different individuals as possible. Because if you miss out on that, like that's 2 months down the drain, that's traction down the drain. If you're not succeeding, your position gets worse. right? Like that's the crazy thing about Solana stuff. I think it was Kevin who tweeted like NFTs are startups on hard mode or something like that. Bro, I've never hit a retweet so fast in my life. Like I love that aspect of it though, because it's so unique and like you rapidly depreciate in NFTs, like your market cap, your business, your proposition and everything. So just being able to utilize, like you said, that personal relationship, I feel like that's the neutralizer. You can like get the idea of what people are excited about, what people are looking for, what's on people's minds immediately. Like, cause you know the network that you're trying to market to, and you can talk to them and you can see what they're excited about, in the future, and then think about like how you can create an experience or a point of value that can capitalize on that and bring new people in. So source as much feedback as you want, live your life with humility in all things that you do. Like be confident. Absolutely. If you're a founder right now, the only piece of advice I can give you is go into every drop you do absolutely confident. Feel comfortable sharing it with people, different founders, different individuals, posting about it, doubling down on yourself. The people who really support you are going to get behind that. And ultimately, you have to have that confidence. And that confidence will be supported by the humility you have in the process. And that if I'm so set on the way we do a distribution of something and I bring it to people and they don't like it, it's not a resistance point where I'm trying to convince them. It's like, okay, let's work out your structure all the way to the end. And if it's just better logistically at levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, then we can go and think about how to spice it up and can it be good? And being able to be humble with your thoughts like that. Like everything that you do, everything that you think from a founder perspective can always be influenced by the people around you. And if you're doing it right, if you truly don't have too much pride, you'll be smart enough to surround yourself with people who are way smarter than you in certain aspects of everything. And they're people you can rely on consistently to deliver and give good ideas because you've cultivated that kind of environment around you. I think the most proud individuals, and I've seen some founders like this, who have the capital to bring on some really talented people, but they feel intimidated by the value those people can add, or that their background has such a strength to it that their opinions might actually be better than their own. And they don't want that to be the case. You know, they want full control of the ideas and where the direction is going. And you can't have that. You have to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, because you can never be a master at everything. You know what I mean? But you can be aware and be in contact with masters of everything and utilize what they have to create the best product possible. And so exercise humility every chance you can. It always pays off.
100%. And I think that's where, you know, the space seems to be going through some growing pains in a lot of ways. And I think
100%.
And I think it's a good thing of like people are realizing now it's not as easy to just see your floor price run up and stuff like that. We have seen a few projects lately do really well, which is good to see. It's good for the space when we have that. You hope that capital that kind of rotates that into some other projects and things like that. But and we've also seen a lot more project founders be really vulnerable lately, which I think is super dope. Because yeah, you guys have a tough job, like you really do, and it's something I try to keep in mind as much as possible. Is like when I'm talking with project founders, like, man, you guys are in a tough position. Like there's no handbook to doing any of this. Right. Anybody who's experienced in NFTs has been in the space for like a year and a half. Yeah. Like it is so new, right? And that's why humility is such an important aspect of things, because what you think you know is still only based off a year and a half of experience, right? Like, you know, photography, what I was doing full time before this, I was doing for 7 years, right? That's a lot of experience, right? And so I'm working my way up there with the podcast, but I'm still only on like 2 years of the podcast, right? So, you know, I'm learning a lot every day, right? And so the important aspect of it is to always be learning, you know, and to generate that feedback from people and learn from that. So I know we only have a little bit more time, and I want to point this out, you know, how much I appreciate your drive to doing these sort of things. Is that you literally flew down here and you got here at like 10 a.m., whatever, and we're finishing by 2 p.m. so you can head back to the airport and get back to work. And yeah. I appreciate that about you, because it's there's a lot of people who would just kind of be like, oh man, like that's such a, you know, I'd be jet lagged, yada yada, and you just do it and you make it happen, and I love that. It's always been one of my favorite aspects of you, is that you just make shit happen. And so just want to point that out. But But so I wanted to give you an opportunity. Is there anything else that you want to make sure that we touch on? Things that you're excited about with BVDCats? Anything that past things that you've learned a lot from? I feel like we've touched on a lot of that. But is there anything that moving forward you want to chat about, or things that you're looking to in this next chapter of BVDCats? Things that really get you excited about the project.
If I really think about it, like through everything, like all the experiences I've had, it's like the thing that I'm most excited about, it genuinely is like the position I as an individual am to be able to help BVDCat to where it wants to go. Having a direct line of Solana Foundation, starting a group with 200 different founders, which we have networks we can leverage, having this new structure around the team.
Wait, tell people about that.
Oh yeah, people might not know this.
Yeah.
So me, Andy from Cyberfrogs, and Snooze from AP. Snooze did a lot of the heavy lifting. Basically put together a group called New Age Founders. It's a safe haven / collaborative space where basically I think 200 plus founders now are in there. And there's literally like a bulletin board where you can just put announcements of what you're going to release in 2 weeks, and nobody leaks it, but they just give founder feedback. Like, dude, this is not going to hit, or you're pricing this wrong, etc. Having that kind of environment where everyone can get feedback and exercise a bit of humility, I think it's massive for the space. And it's something which, like, credits to Andy for coming up with the idea. He messaged me a couple months back, I remember it, and we didn't go through with it because people on our team had personal beef with Andy. Pride, again, getting in the way of great things. And so, as soon as that was resolved, I hit up Andy like, hey, I know you're busy. You've had a lot of things going on, but I really want to do this thing. And so we got together, met a bunch of people that had a similar vision to us, with just this idea of creating a way for founders to connect, build their networks together, source feedback, source help. Anywhere I can give marketing advice and different ways to capture visibility to any of these other guys is amazing. And the insights they have is huge as well. So just having that be a forum for things. And then also in the same way, it's just like, I was using that as a way to source different things that founders and creators need. So that when I had the conversation with the Solana Foundation and Anatoly, I could take those things back to them, things they need, like a communication channel, liaisons between the foundation and small projects, a forum for the foundation to use itself to highlight projects, but in a way that can be vetted and that doesn't feel unfair, is done internally by the community, choosing to spotlight the right projects, and how that reach in themselves can help spotlight NFT projects, things the foundation can do to support everything from code repos, Twitter API access for these small creators who have no chance at talking to the foundation because of the scalability of communicating with thousands of people. Just having a way where we can actually have those things voiced and be impactful in the things they change. In our conversation, we explored a lot of different ways the Solana Foundation can start communicating more directly via spaces and Discord stuff with founders and creators to address issues, and do it in a public setting where people can feel confident about the chain and its relationship with creators amidst all this BD stuff going on with other chains around Solana. So it's just been a really exciting thing to be a part of, and contributing to Solana on a bigger scale. I've seen a lot of different founders, like Totally buying into the project, Kais, like a bunch of different founders I really, really respect, buying in because of the impact the relationship is having. And I think that's important as well. Having the right people be inside of the community, because I'm not just looking at the scope of BVDCat, I'm looking at the scope of Solana and how we can use our position at BVDCat to help that as well. And I think doing that for people will pay off immensely. Laying the groundwork and the foundation for a good and healthy relationship will just benefit us in all ways. It'll make people want to be part of BVDCat. It'll make people want to support me. It'll find new ways for us to leverage connections that can be used to create cool things that are really, really exciting. So for the future of BVDCat, I'm just really excited that I have all these resources. I have this team that's amazing. I've never been more passionate about BVDCat, and it's crazy to think, because pre-mint, I didn't think I could be more excited about anything in my life. Like when we hit that mint sellout, like I just ran around my house jumping for like 10 minutes. You know what I mean? And I feel that when I go through this and we complete a fig jam, and it's got like 60 different parts to it, but all the parts have that little green thumbs up sticker, and it's all come together. And I think about how impossible it would have been for us to do something on this scale with the team before, and being able to do it now. and being able to have the time to curate the content. Like we were rushing drops, and now we're like ahead of the schedule 5 days. We can plan the release, plan the Twitter hype, talk to people to get them to support the content launch. Being able to produce a massively better product, knowing that I'm capable of doing it, knowing that I'm going to do it, and knowing that the people who have supported me for a year now are going to benefit from it. Like that excites me more than anything in the space. So just know that when you buy a bad cat, like that's what you're getting yourself into. A team of people who are just working way harder than they should be, to be honest. And that's the only environment of people I want around me at this point. People who want to work ridiculously hard, people who want to put in the effort in a way that doesn't make sense, who are willing to work long days. Like I got 2 hours of sleep before coming on this flight at 4 a.m, to Las Vegas with a layover to go on another flight.
Oh, damn, you had a layover?
Yeah, I had the Frank special, the Spirit Express, bro. Like
Hey, I'm bullish on project founders that fly Spirit. Bullish.
Yeah, when Frank posted that, I was like, all right, bro. If I
thought it was a joke.
I thought it was too.
I texted him. I was like, you legitimately are flying Spirit? He's like, yeah, I booked my own flight and I booked Spirit. I was like, damn, respect.
Yeah, for real. I saw that and I was like, damn, all that payroll and you're still flying Spirit? That's, you get some fucking respect from me. So yeah, like I'll be back in by 12 p.m., 22 hours, 2 hours sleep. And as soon as I get back, it's probably going to be a 3-hour nap. And then we're going to prepare for that launch on the 24th. And the crazy thing is, like, when you're so excited out of your mind for what you're doing, it just makes sense. Like, you don't think about, oh man, I feel tired today, or oh, I'm burnt out, because you're doing something you're so passionate about. And I think the best founders feel that way. And I'm just glad that I feel that way, because when anyone buys into this project, they know I carry the weight of the responsibility of being the person pushing the helm behind what they're building their identity, putting their money into. Luca had this tweet that was like kind of got roasted, which is be aware of the responsibility you have when someone might be spending like their last paycheck or their savings investing in the
Wait, people flooded that tweet? I saw that tweet. Was it yesterday?
I saw some FUD of someone being like, NFTs are an investment, so you shouldn't be concerned with like what people's investments are. I'm like, just tell me you don't care about holders.
Yeah.
But that was a meaningful tweet, because I think about that a lot, like the responsibility that we have as creators. Not everybody feels that in this space. Some people are here for their own personal ambitions because they want to do something that they find exciting. For me, the best feeling I get is when we drop that thing and the holders are going crazy and everyone's having a good time, and knowing that work created made that experience for people. Like, that's priceless. You can't take that from anything that we've done. So just having that passion and knowing that people buy a bad cat, I'm not going to tell you what we're doing going up, because it's going to be, you'll know by the 31st when this comes out what we're doing and what to be excited about. I just want you to really believe in the team that's behind this. My DMs are always open if anyone ever wants to talk. I have not closed my DMs a single day. I wake up to 70 plus messages. I reply to them all. Some of the best talent I found on this chain, like our current developer who developed Tomb Raid that's doing like 160K plus volume. Like, he had like personal troubles, and we hired him on because he was so talented. And after some mentoring and coaching, he kind of turned his life around and got it more stable. Now he's one of the biggest assets we have in terms of development speed, quality, and everything. Just staying open and taking every opportunity we can to make it happen. Like, that's what we're focused on as a team. That's what you're buying into when you buy Bad Cat more than anything, is a stellar drive. And I'm super grateful to be in the position we're in. Like, we relaunched things. We're top 50 volume again, which is a big improvement from being like a 1/12 where we're at, and it's stable. And I'm just very, very grateful to everybody who's going to be watching this, everybody who's been supporting. I've learned so much in these last few months, and I'm just so ready to finally deliver on all of it and make sure that what we're doing shakes up things and takes us to a new height.
There we go, man. Well, hey, I think that's a beautiful position to wrap it up. I want to touch on the last few things. I think it was great, the collaboration between you guys and the other project founders. I think that's an awesome thing. I always say all the time, I hate the competition aspect of all of this. Like, at the end of the day, like, I don't care if one project is worth more than the other project. Like, I want them all to be worth a shit ton, right? Because, like, why not, right? But, like, if one of them is worth 10 soul more than the other, but they're both above, like, 500 soul, does it really matter? No.
Right.
So, to me, I just want to see people doing well. So I love when people are supporting each other. That's how the space grows. That's how we continue to put out the best work that we can. It's how we, get more people outside the space excited about what's happening here. And so I think it's super, super important what you guys are doing. So I love that. In terms of, the humility that you're showing and the growth of continually trying to learn from everything that's happening and then connect with, the Solana Foundation and things like that. And to continue to, just be in the, I don't even know the word, like be in the ecosystem as much as you can, talking with people, networking with people, opening your DMs to people. Like, that stuff is so important. And it's such an important aspect of continually growing, because even no matter what, like you have in your mental checklist of like, here are the things that are going to happen with BVDCats in the next like 6 months. Some are going to work out, some things aren't, but the more that you're tapped into the community, the more that you're tapped into your holders, the more you're tapped into other project founders and things like that, the better that you're able to recover from whatever happens, right? Good or bad, right? And so I think you guys are in a beautiful position. I'm excited for you. I've always appreciated you and our conversations and everything like that, man. And I'm very much looking forward to the future things. And, and I appreciate everybody, tuning in and watching this. But yeah, dude, chapter 2 is going to be a fun one. It's going to be another chapter of good things, bad things, and everything in between. And it's not, and when I say bad things, I mean more in the sense of like we nothing goes perfect. We learn from everything, right? So
Absolutely.
It's like, it's good to learn from those things. It's good to have, it's good to have days where things don't always go perfectly according to plans. You learn from that shit. Like my business partner and I for Roast Umber, we had a frustrating last few days, right? We had some shipping logistics that got screwed up with the weather delays and stuff like that in California. And we were frustrated, right? And then today we got some good news with it. And, and I texted him and I'm fucking bricked up. I was like, let's fucking go. We got this. We figured this out, right? So, it's, you got to keep that in mind on the days where things don't always go according to plans. Like you're one step away from like things working out, right? So it's just continually get that feedback loop, continue to grow, continue to reflect on what you've gone through and what you've learned from that, and just continue to move forward from there. So
1,000,000%. And I think I'll just end it off with a great quote for people. Luck is manifested by hard work. I firmly believe that in my soul. Like if you work hard at something consistently, eventually luck will come into it and capitalize off everything you've been doing. So if you feel like you're not getting results now, if you're frustrated, you've been in the space a year, you're one of these founders who's been struggling, you're trying to create revenue streams, don't get discouraged. Don't take failure as an opportunity to look at yourself and blame yourself. Like think about how you can genuinely improve your position and keep working at it. Keep grinding it out as hard as you can. Because eventually, if you do the right practices, if you put in the right work, just like taking care of yourself every day, it's going to pay off. It's an accumulated gain, the knowledge that you're getting, the experiences, the failures that you're making. With BVDCat Phase 2, I expect to fail hard, and I expect to succeed very, very hard when we do. And that's all that matters at the end of the day. People will remember the successes way more than anything else. So
hell yeah,
just keep working at it.
There we go. Well, hey, that's a beautiful position to wrap it up. You got a flight that you got to head back off to. So,
True.
So, hey, man, I appreciate this. I appreciate you. Appreciate our friendship. And looking forward to the future again of BVDCats. And Chapter 2 is going to be exciting. And with that, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll chat with you guys soon.
Likewise, man. Thank you.
No problem. See you guys.